Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport!
A victorious daydream.
Good sport!
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport!
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport!
It's the name of the game.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Good Sports. My name is Ryan Flaherty. As you can hear, I'm sounding a little different this week. Don't worry, I'm not dying. Just a little bit of voice loss, which isn't the ideal situation when your voice is what helps you make your living. But you know what? It just happens from time to time. So we're going to power through because we have an excellent show for you this week. I love the show every week, but I'm pretty pumped up for this week's show, maybe more pumped up than I've been in a while for an episode. And that is because, as you can see, I'm wearing the Blue Jays gear. Obviously, they're in the World Series. This is a local sports show, but I'm not just wearing the Blue Jays gear because the Jays are in the World Series in defiance of our local sports mandate on this show, but because our guest this week is the one and only Andrew Albers, the pride of North Battleford, Saskatchewan, a former Blue Jay himself, albeit briefly, and former Major League pitcher with two other organizations. We're going to talk some World Series, but we're going to talk a lot about his career, his journey, and the ups and downs, going up and down through minor league baseball, playing overseas, and of course, in the show as well. Hit some of the highlights, and also some of his highlights playing for Team Canada along the way. He's coaching these days. We're going to get to all of that in a fantastic chat on a little bit of an supersized World Series sized edition of Good Sports. So thanks for being here. Andrew Albers is going to join me in just a few minutes time. Before we get into it, of course, I want to remind you to please, if you haven't already, liked, shared, and subscribed to the Dufferin Ave Media Network YouTube channel. Please do that. I know you're watching us on there most likely, so if you are, thank you. You've already done the heavy lifting, but please share as widely as you can. This is the only show in Saskatoon that covers local sports at this granular level, to this amount of detail. You're not going to get the kind of stories you're going to get anywhere else than you do right here on the show. So get on board. We're only 22 episodes in, and we're just getting started. You can follow us on Instagram at GoodSports306. That's where you'll find clips and news, a lot of scores from around the Saskatoon area, keeping you posted on what our local teams and athletes are doing. And so you can follow us there. You can also get in touch with the show. Maybe you have an idea for a guest you'd like to see. Maybe you think you should be a guest on the show. You did something cool that we should know about in the sports world. Please, by all means, fire us an email. Maybe you just have some feedback that you'd like to provide, good, bad, or otherwise. Fire us an email, goodsports306@gmail.com. That is where you can find us. Let's get into it. Before we get to Andrew Albers, of course, we always like to kick off the show with a look at what happened over the last week and what is to come in the next week in a segment we call What's Going On? And another very jam-packed edition of What's Going On, so I'm going to try to get through this as efficiently as possible, but we like to be comprehensive here on the show. We got to start off with the headline event of last weekend here in Saskatoon, and that is the Saskatoon Hilltops winning yet another Prairie Football Conference championship. And boy, was it ever a thriller as they went down to Regina and defeated the Regina Thunder 30-27 in overtime on Sunday at Mosaic Place, to reclaim the PFC title from the Thunder, who won it last year, defeating the Hilltops. And yes, it was overtime, but it was even more dramatic than that. The Hilltops were down by 15 points, 24-9, with less than 11 minutes left in the game. Our friend of the show, former guest David Collins, got the comeback started with a 2-yard touchdown run, one play after a pass interference in the end zone. That put the score to 24-16 with about 6.5 minutes left. The Hilltops then didn't score on their next possession and then turned the ball over on downs with about 2:25 to go in regulation. But they got another possession after their defense stopped the Thunder. On that possession, they converted a 3rd and 7 with just over a minute to go. Then another 3rd down, this time for and 10 yards to go with less than a minute left. And eventually they got a touchdown pass to Isaiah Valderuten, plus the 2-point convert with just 31 seconds left to tie the game at 24. Regina still got a chance to win in regulation. They drove down to the Hilltops 45-yard line, setting up a field goal try for the win. It was not good from 52 yards out. The Hilltops were flagged for 15 yards. The Thunder got another chance from 37. Kick was wide right, brought out of the end zone. Off to overtime we go. In OT, Hilltops won the toss, elected to start on defense. They sacked Regina's quarterback on 2nd and goal on the Thunder's first possession in overtime. That forced the Thunder to settle for a field goal. Then the Hilltops took the ball. They converted another 3rd down on that ensuing possession before getting the winning points on another touchdown pass, the second of the game, from Griffin Sander to Isaiah Valderuten for the win in overtime, snatching the victory away from the Thunder. I mentioned Griffin Sander. We've talked a lot about the Hilltops being a very run-first offense this season, led by David Collins and company. But Griffin Sander, the former Huskies backup, now at the Hilltops, had his best day as the Hilltops quarterback this season. 17 of 26 for 206 yards and those 2 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception. Mentioned Valderuten, 2 touchdown grabs out of his 6 catches for 91 yards. David Collins, another stellar outing, 24 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. And let's not forget the defense as well. Give them some love. Linebacker Isaac McCalluck had 8 solo tackles, 2 assisted tackles, and defensive lineman Noah Chelsom picked up a big man INT, which everyone always loves. So the Hilltops are PFC champs again, and now they get a chance to not only play for another Canadian Bowl title, but to host that Canadian Bowl game, which will be in 2 weekends from now, November 9th, Sunday, at SMF Field. They will take on their longtime BC Conference foes, the Okanagan Sun. They have clashed in a number of national championship games over the years. The Hilltops will have home field advantage again Sunday, November 9th. I think it's a 1 o'clock kickoff, but check the Hilltops and the CGFL website for the schedule to be sure of that. That should be a ton of fun. Hilltops going for Canadian Bowl number 24 as they will take on the Okanagan Sun on November 9th. All right, let's stay with football. Congratulations to the Hilltops. Let's also congratulate the Saskatchewan Huskies as they clinched first place in the Canada West with a win over the Manitoba Bisons in their final conference game of the season, 31-12, the final on Saturday, which is the 5th straight win for the Huskies. But they actually had already clinched first place before they even kicked off that game because the Regina Rams were upset on Friday by the UBC Thunderbirds. And so that meant the Huskies didn't even need to take the field to have first place locked up. It was more of a tune-up game for the playoffs against Manitoba, but they still took care of business. Jake Farrell started again, 3rd straight start in place of Anton Amandrud. Nobody really knows what's up with Anton Amandrud, so that's the big question mark heading into the playoffs. But in the meantime, Jake Farrell has performed admirably. He's 3-0 as the starter, and he had a very strong game, 19 of 33, so not a great completion percentage, but 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 2 of those touchdowns to Daniel Weeb on a record-setting day for the 5th-year receiver, who not only broke the Huskies' single-season receiving touchdowns mark, but also the career receiving touchdowns record held by his receivers coach, Mitch Hillis. So that's a cool little connection there. And defensively, big play to kind of seal the deal in the 4th quarter. Lucas Scheck, the defensive back, with a strip sack, fumble, recovery for a touchdown, 72 yards to kind of put the game on ice. He's actually been named Canada West Defensive Player of the Week. And so the Huskies finished the season 7-1, and now they're off to the Hardy Cup semifinals. That first place means, of course, they have home field advantage through the Hardy Cup playoffs. And should they win the Hardy Cup, they'll also host the Mitchell Bowl against the champion of the Ontario Universities Association. And then with the Vanier Cup being in Regina this year, again, we've talked about this a few times before, but the prospect for the Huskies is they don't have to go further than Regina in this playoff run if they can go all the way to the Vanier Cup. So that's going to save them a lot of money on flights that they don't have to take, hotels that they don't have to book, all those sorts of things. So that's going to help Husky Athletics save a few bucks as well. That's never a bad thing. So there you go. The Huskies will host UBC in one of those Hardy Cup semifinals this Saturday, November 1st, 2 o'clock kickoff from Griffith Stadium. Manitoba will take on Regina down in the Queen City in the other semifinal. So get your tickets for that one. Pack the stands at Griffiths on Saturday afternoon and give the Huskies a true home field advantage. Congrats to the Huskies. Work still to be done to reclaim the Hardy Cup. Sticking with the Huskies, women's soccer team saw its season come to an end last weekend in the Canada West quarterfinals, losing 1-0 in Vancouver against the powerhouse UBC Thunderbirds, who, as we've talked about on the show here, have had an incredible year, going undefeated without even giving up a single goal. That run continues with that 1-0 win. Got to give the Dogs a lot of credit. They played a pretty solid game all around. The stats were fairly even. Shots on target were 6-4 UBC. And one of those did find the net. Hannah Baines with the goal in the 63rd minute to make the difference. But, still another playoff appearance for the Huskies. That women's team has now made the playoffs in 13 straight seasons, going all the way back to 2012. Of course, there's a year without a season in there from COVID. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That's hard to get into the playoffs year in and year out. And the Dogs have done that every single season under head coach Kirsten Barandika-Hamilton, who was a guest on our very first episode. So we got all kinds of time for the Huskies women's soccer program. So congrats to the Huskies. I know they're disappointed in the way it ended, but still a lot to be proud of. 8 wins during the regular season and a 13th straight playoff appearance. Let's stay on the women's side of things and talk some Huskies women's basketball. They tipped off their season last weekend in, we'll say, decisive fashion against the woeful McEwen Griffins. Not a very stiff test out of the gate for the Dogs against a team that went 1-19 last year. The defending national champs handling their business. First on opening night, they raised their latest Canada West and National Championship banners to the rafters at the Physical Activities Complex over on campus. And then they went out and hammered the Griffins by 59 points, 87-28. Gage Grasick, the best female athlete in all of U Sports last year. I just pick it up right where she left off. A casual 21 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. Typical stat stuffing night for the Prince Albert product. Logan Reeder had 18 points, Taya Demong 17. And here's a number that will just highlight just how lopsided this game was. A total of 3 Griffins players scored points. One of them had 20, and they had 2 other players combined for the other 8. It was an absolute clobbering. But you know what? The Huskies went even further in Game 2, defeating McEwen by 61 on Saturday, 98-37 the final there. All 5 starters reached double figures in scoring. Logan Reeder, Maya Flindall, both with 19. Taya Demong, big double-double with 17 points, 12 rebounds. Owen Grasick, by the way, came 1 rebound and 1 assist shy of a triple-double. 13 points, 9 boards, 9 dimes. Just another day at the office for Gage Grasick, another friend of the show, I should add as well. So, 2-0 start, as expected, for the defending national champions. As for the Huskies men, they split their opening weekend series against the Griffins. Lost a nail-biter on Friday, 82-80, despite Easton Tim putting up 21 points and 18 rebounds. Mohamed Mahadi had 19 and 5 plus 4 assists and 4 steals. But they bounced back well on Saturday to beat the Griffins 88-73. Dylan Miller, 6 of 8 from downtown, ended up with 20 points, a team high. The team as a collective went 50% from three-point land. Emmanuel Bonsu had 16 points, and Easton Tim, another solid performance. The big man with 14 points, 8 rebounds. So the men started off 1-1. They were 5-15 last year, so nice to be at the 500 mark through one weekend. Both Husky basketball teams will be on the road this weekend as they visit the Mount Royal Cougars. Speaking of those Cougars, that's who the Husky volleyball teams faced last weekend. Mixed results there. The women swept MRU on the road, took their first one in straight sets on Friday. Then a 5-setter, 3-2, they come out on top on Saturday to even their record at 2-2. The men, they were on the other side of that coin. They got swept by Mount Royal, losing 3-1 on Friday and then 3-2 on Saturday. And somewhat surprisingly, maybe it wasn't a shock to see them lose a couple to Alberta on opening weekend, but now they're 0-4 to start the season. They were number 3 in the preseason coaches poll, so that is a little bit of a shock to see them sitting at 0-4. But it's still early in the season. The Huskies will be on the road this weekend in Kamloops, British Columbia, beautiful part of the country, as they will take on the Thompson Rivers University Wolfpack this weekend. Let's hit the ice for some Huskies hockey updates. The men's hockey team swept their provincial rivals, the Regina Cougars, extending an incredible run. They have now won 16 straight against Regina and 34 of the last 35 all combined, with that only loss coming in Regina. So it's been over a decade since they've lost to the Cougars at home. It was a home-and-home series. The men picked up the first one at Merlis Belcher Place as they crushed the Cougs 8-1, 8 different players scoring a goal. Connor Roulette had 3 assists as well to lead the point parade. Brian Thompson just about got his second straight shutout, but he made 20 saves to pick up the win. Not quite as lopsided in Regina in the second game on Saturday, but still a pretty decisive win for the Dogs. 5-1 the final. They were up to a 3-0 lead after one, and then they just kind of put it on cruise control. And how about the start for Chance Petruic? Oh, by the way, friend of the show, former guest, 2 goals in that win on Saturday. He had 1 on Friday. He's now got 8 goals in the first 6 games of the season. But what's even more remarkable is he didn't have a single point in the first 2 games. All 8 of those goals are in the last 4 games, albeit against bottom feeders in the conference, but you still got to hit the net. And Petruic, with 8 goals in his last 4 games, also leads the Canada West in goal scoring. Jordan Coy was in goal for that victory. He made 26 saves. The Huskies are now 5-1 on the season on the men's side. As for the women, they split against the Cougars, picked up a 1-0 overtime win in Regina on Friday at Cooperators Arena, and it was quite the debut for their Finnish import new recruit Pepi Virtanen in her very first game as a Husky after missing the first 4 due to illness. She scored the overtime winner, and it was an absolute beauty on the breakaway, going a little fake to the forehand, backhand, roof job over the shoulder of the goaltender. All kinds of skill on display there. So she certainly announced her arrival on the Canada West scene in a pretty loud fashion. And it was also a memorable night for Emma Backman in goal, the 3rd Husky goaltender to start already this season. Same trio they had in net last year with Colby Wilson and Clara Juka, but it was Backman who got her first start of the season, and she earned not only her first career win, but her first career shutout as well. Second Husky goalie on that team to do that this season. Clara Juka did it the prior weekend against Trinity Western. So cool to see the second and third goalies on the depth chart getting some good moments as well here early in the season. Not so good on Saturday for the women as they lost 4-1 on home ice against the Cougars. Bronwyn Boucher had Saskatchewan's only goal. The fifth-year veteran Colby Wilson took the loss. She made 19 saves. Still, though, considering where things were for the women's team last year, you have to be fairly happy with their start at 2-2-2 through 6 games. They are now on the road this weekend as they will face the Manitoba Bisons. The men will host Manitoba at Merlis Belcher Place. Game time Friday for that one. The first of those 2 is at 7 o'clock. One final stop on our Huskies spin, and that is for some cross-country running. I told you we're comprehensive here. The Canada West Championships were run in Victoria last weekend. The Huskies men's team placed 4th, so just narrowly missed getting to the podium for a second straight year. Their top finishers, Anthony and Taya, finished 4th, and Alex Webster 6th. And because of those finishes, they were also named Conference First Team All-Stars. The women placed 6th as a team. Their top finisher, Morgan Teedy, finished in 25th position. There were also a couple of award winners on the Husky side, one on each team. Atlee Maloney and Alex Webster winning both the women's and men's Student Athlete Community Service Awards for the Canada West this season. So congrats to them. One more big event to come. The U Sports National Championships are taking place November 9th. That's a Saturday in Sherbrooke, Quebec. So good luck to the Husky athletes who will be taking part in those. A couple more things to get to before we finish off what's going on, as we'll take a look at the Saskatoon Blades now. They're in the midst of their biennial U.S. road trip, U.S. division road trip. Of course, you only travel to that division once every 2 seasons. The alternate years, you travel to the BC division. They dropped the first 2 games of that trip last weekend. A 3-2 loss in Everett on Friday. Hunter Lang scored both Blades goals. Evan Gardner was terrific. He made 36 saves. The Blades were outshot 39-16 in that game. Only lost by a goal. Not so close on Saturday in Portland as they dropped a 6-3 decision. Kasdan Matthews led the scoring. He had a goal and an assist. But Evan Gardner had a tougher night, giving up 4 goals on 19 shots before being replaced in the net. The Blades fell behind 5-0 in that game. So the final score maybe flatters them in the final summation. However, the Blades did rebound just on Tuesday night with a 4-2 victory in Kennewick, Washington over the Tri-City Americans. Matthews again factoring prominently in the scoring with a third period game tying goal and 2 assists. Ethan McCallum got the start, and he made 29 saves to pick up the victory in net. So the Blades are now 10-5 on the season, and they have 3 more games to wrap up the U.S. trip this week/weekend. They're in Spokane tonight, Wednesday night, as this episode's being released. On Friday, they're in Seattle, and then they close out the trip in Wenatchee, Washington, against the Wenatchee Wild on Saturday. So that's what's going on with the Blades. And let's finally turn our attention to the Warman Wolverines, who, considering the way the season started, had a pretty decent week, going 1-1-1 in their 3 games. Started off with a 6-3 victory on home ice over the Melville Millionaires on Friday, with Peyton Allard scoring twice and Tay Timmerman making 26 saves. He did leave the game late in the contest, but the Wolverines still secured the victory thanks to 4 third-period goals. Again, that win over the Millionaires. Not so good on the follow-up the next night, also at home, as they were bounced 7-2 by the Yorkton Terriers. A motivated Terriers team that was coming off an 11-0 loss to Flin Flon. So, they were pissed off about that, and they took out some of that frustration on the Wolverines on Saturday night. Especially William Leonard, who scored 4 goals for Yorkton, the first 4-goal performance in the SJHL this year. Riley, Rich Holden, and Ethan Dundas scored the Wolverines goals in that loss. And then on Tuesday, at a noon game in Kindersley, a school day affair against the Clippers, was a tight one. And the Clippers come away with a 3-2 win in a shootout. Warman product, Brock Evans, who plays for Kindersley, actually scored both the Clippers goals and the shootout winner. Kane Kennedy had both goals for the Wolverines, who outshot the Clippers 59-39 through 65 minutes of hockey. But Brett O'Halloran, Clippers goaltender, was excellent. Griffin Wright was pretty solid as well for Warman, just came up a little bit short in the shootout. So the Wolverines now sit at 3-9-2 on the season, officially 1/4 of the way through the 56-game schedule. They have a home-and-home this weekend. They will host the Melfort Mustangs on Friday and then head up to Melfort and play them again on Saturday. So that's what's going on with the Warman Wolverines. That's what's going on this week. Now, time to talk some baseball with Andrew Albers.
Good sport!
All right, well, as I mentioned off the top of the show, I'm not usually wearing a non-local gear here because this is a local show, but of course there's a very good reason for that. Not only are the Blue Jays 2 wins away from winning the World Series, but we've got a former Blue Jay here in the studio, Andrew Albers. I'm so grateful that you could come down and be here. Welcome to Good Sports.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yes, I touched on it. We're going to get into your whole baseball life, but obviously World Series is the topic du jour. So I want to start there and just ask you, before we even talk about the games or the series itself, what is it like for you to see the Jays back in the World Series? Because you're like a lot of us. We're similar age. I mean, you were, 10 years old when they were in there?
About 7 or 8,
yeah.
92, 93, yeah.
So what is it like for you as someone who has worn the uniform and also grew up in this country watching them, to see them back in this World Series in the first time in over 30 years?
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, growing up, obviously, remember a little bit of the 92, 93 days when I was 7 or 8, I saw the Coca-Cola commercial come on the other day, and I was like, oh man, I remember that. And obviously it gets the whole country excited. You know, it's really neat to see the buzz that's being generated here, even in Saskatchewan and all across the country for the Jays. Obviously, when it's been 30 years, it's been a little while and a little longer than you would like, but it's certainly really neat to see the excitement that everybody has right now. You hear everyone talking about the games, and wherever you go, you're seeing more Blue Jays gear right now, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
And I mean, your connection, you were the Jays, but you also played for the Bisons in the organization. That was 2015, but there's surely some people within the organization that are still there now. So there must be some, I mean, a couple people here and there. I'm not putting you on the spot, but like some people that you rub shoulders with that are now getting to experience it.
Believe it or not, there aren't a lot. Pete Walker's still there.
Yeah.
He was the pitching coach, and actually the trainer, Voon.
There we
Voon
go.
was our trainer in Buffalo the year I was there. Other than that, I don't think anyone's left. Anthopoulos is gone. He was the GM when I was there. Gibbons was the manager, so I'm not quite sure who all's left on the coaching staff. But yeah, it's crazy the turnover that you get in baseball. It happens in a hurry. So that's about it from the 15 days.
Yeah, and I guess John Schneider and all the baby Jays, so to speak, were a little bit after you were there. Not too long, but a few years after when Bo and Vladdy showed up, obviously, and John Schneider started managing them too. But still, the Lynx, Pete Walker. I mean, he's almost an institution now.
Yeah.
What do we? Maybe let's talk briefly, because that pitching has been such a big focal point, obviously, as it always is. But a lot of people felt, even coming into this series, that the big advantage for the Dodgers was in their pitching, especially in their starting pitching. So what have you made of these first 4 games as we record, and the way that the Jays starters especially have handled the assignment?
Yeah, I think they've done a great job. Each starter's gone out there and given the Jays a chance, and that's all you can ask for, right? Like nobody's gone out and had a bad outing really. Like Bieber, even Scherzer's was a little bit shorter yesterday, but at the same time, he leaves there. It's a tie game if you can get out of that inning, but they've all done a great job. Savage wasn't his sharpest. Hopefully he can rebound tonight and give them a good start. That's going to be important. Obviously facing up with Blake Snell, that's going to be a challenge. And certainly for the Dodgers, their starting staff is outstanding. The big thing for the Jays is, can they work the pitch counts? Can they get into the bullpen early enough to try to take advantage? And the 2 games that they've won, I think they've been able to do that. And then obviously the 18-inning game was a little bit of an outlier. The Dodgers bullpen threw great, as did the Jays. But at the same time, the Jays lineup wasn't quite at full strength when the bullpen came in. So you think you've heard everyone talk about it. That's going to be the key for the Jays, is can they get into the pen kind of in that 6th inning to get it, to have an opportunity to face some of those middle leverage arms that the Dodgers have, and can they take advantage?
I was kind of chuckling and thinking, geez, if this game keeps going, they might have to give you a call. They're running out of pitching arms. Call you out of the deepest part of the bullpen from Saskatchewan to jump in. I also kind of laughed when my brother and I were talking about members of the 2015 team who had come out throwing first pitches in the ALCS. I said, well, Albers is still available.
You got to be getting really desperate if you're calling me up for that. My one day with the Jays, I don't know if that's going to suffice. So.
Well, I will say bragging rights, I guess, over little brother, as I did predict Estrada would be the Game 7 guy. But that and a $1.50, you don't get a cup of coffee for $1.50 anymore. But I mean, this run has been quite something to witness and to watch. I wonder, and you mentioned Savage, and it just popped into my head thinking about your debut and how he has kind of arrived on the scene, and the debut that you had in the show with Minnesota. How much can you kind of relate to what he's going through? Obviously, you didn't start the season in low A and rock it up like in 1 year like he did, but to come in and have an impact like you did right off the hop like that, and to see a guy do that, you must have been some memories coming up for you.
It's pretty incredible what he's done. I mean, he's 22 years old. I can't imagine having or pitching in the World Series, let alone Game 1 at 22. I think I was still in college at the time, and in no way was I ready for that. And so there are some small similarities, but really what he's done has been pretty incredible. He's worked his way up through 3 different levels this year. I think he started the year in high A, and obviously the stuff's really, really good. He's got a little bit of a unique delivery, which guys haven't seen before, and certainly plays into his favor as well. The splitter's outstanding. I mean, it's all the metrics, all the analysis on it have proven that it's a real pitch, and it's something that if he can execute, guys are really going to struggle with. And that, along with his four-seam fastball, allows him to have a lot of success. And the way he's attacked the zone, I mean, he's gone right after guys, doesn't show any fear, really composed out there, for a 22-year-old, it's been really impressive. And you talk about my debut, I think I debuted at about 27 and for a 100-loss team. And the nice thing for that is there was no pressure about making the playoffs, because if we lost, it was just one of the 100 losses. So a little bit different that way, but again, to see what he's done, hopefully, again, he can rebound a little bit tonight. I didn't think he was super sharp in game one. A lot of big misses. I actually thought he was fortunate to get out of there with just the 2. I think it was 2 and 4 or 4 and a third or whatever. So hopefully he's a little bit sharper tonight and can really showcase what he's been able to do over the last couple months.
Team-wise, I mean, that's another big story with this Jays squad, is just how the all 26 sort of mantra about everybody kind of contributing. 18 inning game notwithstanding. But have you ever played on a team like that has had that kind of vibe to it, where, everyone is contributing and everyone is, spurring each other on and accepting their roles and just collectively all pulling on the same end of the rope with that kind of force?
I think the only thing I can relate that to is the national teams that I played on. I think with Team Canada, you get a lot of that. You get a lot of guys whose egos go out the window. They're unselfish. And you see a lot of that with the Blue Jays this year. I think it's pretty incredible the run they've been on. If you go into the beginning of the season and you say that Addison Barger and Miles Straw and Lucas are going to be in the lineup for Game 1 of the World Series, I'm guessing you get laughed off the stage or whatever platform you're on. But there they were in Game 1, and those 3 guys were in the lineup starting. And they've all contributed this year. And I think that's been really the fun thing to see about the Jays, is they've had a lot of young guys come up with a lot of energy, come up to prove themselves, come up, work really hard, and play their role. Whether it's Ernie Clement or, again, Addison Barger or Lucas, all of those guys have come in and been big-time contributors. And they weren't people that I think you were expecting to contribute at the beginning of the year. I mean, obviously Santander was their big offseason signing.
All 6 home runs he hit.
Unfortunately, that didn't work out great, and obviously with the injury. But guys have stepped up in his place. I mean, if he's healthy, you maybe don't have Barger, and you're maybe not here, right? He's come in, done a great job. Same thing with Clement and all of those guys. And I think that young energy from some of those guys that have grinded it out in the minors, that have been there for a little while, and all of a sudden they're getting their opportunity, has really helped some of the veteran guys, buy back in and again, accept their roles and be willing to be unselfish. And it's really, really fun to see, and it's fun to watch.
And even Santander, for all the disappointment that the year brought, was still able to get into the lineup in the ALCS, get a couple of RBI before he, re-aggravated his injury. So even in a small window, he was able to have some sort of a contribution, which I'm sure will help him feel a little bit better if he's getting a ring, at the end of the season, that, I did play a role here, not just early in the season, but I was able to get into a couple playoff games. Before I move off the World Series talk, I got to ask you about Shohei Ohtani and, as a pitcher, watching a guy like that, what goes through your mind about like putting yourself on a mound and thinking about how you would pitch to a guy like that? Or would you just be like, please put up the four fingers? We've seen a lot of that too, right? The 4 fingers.
Yeah, I mean, what he's done is pretty incredible. He's one of one, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's a unicorn. It's been unbelievable to watch him swing the bat the way he has and then go out and pitch. And, there are so many things that he does that I would have said were impossible. And to do it that high of a level is just incredible. From a pitching standpoint, he's a guy that really just try to keep in the yard. You got to make sure you keep it out of the middle of the plate. You got to try to mix pitches well. He's a guy you circle kind of in the lineup right now with Betts and Freeman struggling a little bit, and it's got to be, hey, I'm not going to let this guy beat me. And obviously we saw that in Game 3 with the 18-inning game, and there were the 4 intentional walks, and really the 5th one was close enough to being intentional, where I think he threw 4 breaking balls and they were all in the dirt. And, that's fine and no problem with that. But when you do attack him, which you're going to have to, because you can't just give him first base all the time because he can run as well, you've got to make good pitches. And unfortunately, the second home run, I didn't see the first one. I got back a little bit late, but the second home run was just poor execution. Sir Anthony left a fastball middle 0-0, and that's just not a pitch you can make to him, right? And easier said than done, and easy to sit back here and say, well, you can't do that. You got to execute better than that. And unfortunately, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's not that easy, right? And but when you do attack him, you got to make good pitches. And if you can make good pitches and get ahead, he's still going to get himself out. He hit whatever it was, 300 on the season. He had a great year, don't get me wrong, great hitter. But at the same time, if you make him put the ball in play, you're going to get him out more often than not. And that's got to be the approach, in my opinion.
And it was good to see, it was fun to see Bieber go after him in Game 4 and strike him out a couple of times. Because you're right, he has, if you execute, you can get him out. He's not a robot. He does have human tendencies as well. He does have some holes in his swing, although albeit very small ones. But you can get to him there. Let's rewind here because obviously the World Series is front and center. But I didn't have you on I thought the timing was great because initially when we were kind of going back and forth, I thought maybe you get here during the ALCS. Might be two of your former teams going head to head. But I mean, this is also excellent timing. But I mean, this is all about the local people in the local show. So it's a great chance to kind of get more about your story as well. So I want to hit the rewind and go back to North Battleford and your hometown, obviously, and coming up in North Battleford. At what point did baseball really take center stage for you? And maybe from there, when did you maybe kind of realize it could take you some places?
I think it was a little bit later on. I mean, had some success early on as a kid. I was really fortunate. My dad was my coach all the way up through 18 years old, and I played all of my minor ball in North Battleford, and we had some pretty decent teams, and had some success early on, which always makes you want to play more, when you're successful with it. But it wasn't something that I focused on individually really until kind of that senior year of high school, so grade 11, grade 12. And that was kind of when I had an idea that, I had some colleges starting to talk to me and inquire about what my plans were after school. And I was like, okay, maybe I can take this somewhere and maybe this should become a goal of mine to try to get down south and play some collegiate baseball somewhere. And I was fortunate enough to where I got a couple good offers and chose to go to the University of Kentucky and had a really great experience there. Getting to play in the SEC, which is probably the best baseball conference in the country, especially now that everything's combined. But back then it was only, I think, 12 teams, so a little bit different. But still, probably the best conference in the country, and maybe wasn't quite ready for it freshman year and took some bumps, but at the same time, great learning experience. And the things that I learned there and the pitching coach that I had there, a guy by the name of Gary Henderson, were really influential on my career, and I wouldn't have had the career that I had without that stop. So was really thankful to get that opportunity and to get to go there. And again, coming from North Battleford, Saskatchewan, not a route that a lot of guys got to take. And I was just really fortunate to kind of be in the right place at the right time and have some good showings to where they liked me enough to give me an opportunity. And
I mean, I don't know how many people know this as well, but I mean, you were first drafted out of high school, like before you even played at Kentucky. And to get noticed playing at high school in North Battleford, I think that speaks volumes about the talent, the raw talent at least, or something along those lines. So what was that like to first get that call or whatever it was that you're like either San Diego's interested, or how did that all kind of play out, and how did you kind of find out you'd been drafted?
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. I wasn't expecting that at all. I ended up getting drafted by Milwaukee in the 12th round.
Milwaukee. Yeah, San Diego was the second time. That's right.
Out of high school, yeah, and I was shocked. Partly because we had told I had my advisor, right? Can't have an agent then, because then you're ineligible for NCAA sports. But had my advisor, and it was pretty apparent that I was likely going to go to school because I probably wasn't going to get drafted enough to where the money was going to make enough of an impact to forego the scholarship. And I actually wasn't even home when it happened. I was on a senior trip with my grade 12 classmates at Ranger Lake, and I got home and at probably, 11:30, and my parents sat me down and said, "Hey, Milwaukee called and you got drafted in the 12th round." And I, wait, what? I thought if I got drafted back then, you could kind of do the draft and follow deal where you could draft some guys a little bit later and follow them throughout the summer and then offer them a little bit of a signing bonus at the end. I thought if anything, that might be the case. To hear that I got drafted in the 12th round, I was thinking, man, that's probably the biggest overdraft in history because there's almost no way I'm signing. And, got to have dinner. Dick Roach came all the way down to North Battleford, Saskatchewan, had dinner with the family, and he was the assistant GM at the time. And, it made a very convincing argument where it's like, oh, I really got to think about this now. And I think I made the right decision in going to school. But at the same time, it was really neat to, again, go through that experience of getting drafted, and it wasn't something that I was expecting there, and was pretty neat.
Yeah, like how did they find you? I guess in the was it through like your advisor, or do they do the work of just sort of like, hey, here's some tape, or here's how did they end up locating you, up here in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, there were actually a couple different things. I mean, every year there's the Canada Cup that takes the best 16, 17-year-olds and they go play a tournament. I guess the best 16, 17-year-olds from most of the provinces. Ontario's a little bit of a different deal. We won't get into that one. Yeah. But anyways, for most of the provinces, and they go play in this tournament. So you get some scouts there, whether they're collegiate or some professional scouts. I went to a couple identification days, I guess, here, where they got put on by a man by the name of Dale Tillman. Used to put them on. I think one was in Swift Current. I can't remember. There was maybe one other one. And actually, I went to, it was called Big League Experience. It was a baseball camp in British Columbia. I had actually kind of gotten hurt my junior year, my grade 11 year, and was kind of coming off some tendonitis and went in through there and had a really good week just in general. Played really well, pitched really well, even hit really well, which was rare for me back then. So, you get identified at some of these different locations, and then you get people out there that kind of watch and probably see you a few times that you don't even know about, and that's kind of how that happened, and yeah, it just turned into them deciding to choose me on draft day, and like I said, I was as shocked as anybody.
And I mean, like you say, in a lot of cases, we see a lot of players go through this. You get drafted out of high school, then you continue to go. You go to college, and then you get drafted again a few years later. This is by San Diego. No, I got it right here. Second time around in 2008. So you said, you're so raw. Like, how much more sort of prepared did you feel the second time around when the Padres came calling?
Yeah, much more. I think getting that experience to go to college, and if you go to a Division I school, you're not draft eligible until after your junior year, so that's your third year. I didn't have a very good junior year, so I wasn't even drafted after that. Went back for my senior year, and certainly getting to play in that conference, getting to play against that level of competition made a huge difference. I honestly think if I sign out of high school, I don't last very long in the low minors. Having been through that after getting drafted in college, because I got hurt a little bit and got stuck down in rookie ball, it was a grind. And coming out of that coming out of high school and getting thrown into that environment, I don't think would have been very beneficial for me, and it would have been a really tough struggle to get out of that. But having had those years in college, having gone through some struggles, having faced some failure there, and still having that support group around you made a big difference for me. And getting able to experience those things and then go into pro ball and having some of those setbacks again and some things that didn't go the way that I would have liked, having had those struggles, it allowed you to lean back on those and how you had come back from them before and be able to persevere through some of the stuff that if I come out of high school, I don't know if I would have been able to.
You mentioned setbacks, and obviously I was like, continue through the bio. I mean, the very year after you get drafted the second time, you had Tommy John. So how mentally, how tough was that? And coming out of that, where were you, and how did you kind of rebuild, if you will, to get back to where you had been prior to the surgery?
Yeah, that was a tough one for me because originally when I went down, it was just going to be a scope. Thought it was just going to be a cleanup. I'd had all the stress x-rays done. I'd had the arthrograms where they inject the dye into the ligaments to take an MRI to see what's going on, and they'd all come back negative. And it was a really frustrating time. I'd actually heard it kind of the year before and kind of rested throughout the off season and then rehabbed and rested and rehabbed again. And just I went to spring and I was like, okay, I knew it wasn't quite right. And it's like, I either got to throw till I blow it out or throw until it feels better. And unfortunately, my second outing in spring, it kind of went on me a little bit. Again, still did the stress x-rays, still did the MRIs, and they came back negative. We finally did one last one in San Diego right when I got there. And again, the next day I was scheduled for a scope. Doctor came in and he's like, hey, your ligaments opened up from the stress x-ray, so we're just going to do the UCL reconstruction, which is the Tommy John surgery. And he said it very matter-of-factly, as doctors do, very professionally, and I almost missed it. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So I was expecting to be out for 6 weeks, and now all of a sudden you're out for 9 months to a year. And unfortunately, my rehab didn't go very well at the beginning. I had a really tough time getting my range of motion back. And, that was a really frustrating experience, really frustrating time for me. It took probably 3-4 months of just going in every day, trying to crank on it, having trainers crank on it. It's not pleasant. It's very uncomfortable. And, you try to get it straight, you try to bend it. I slept in braces to try to get extension and just nothing was working. So eventually after about 4.5 months, I went back in for a second surgery, and I had gotten to the point really where it was like, man, I honestly don't even care if I can ever throw a baseball again. I just want to be able to move my arm correctly. And so it gives you a little bit different perspective. And I went in for a second surgery, kind of a cleanup, and they cleaned up some scar tissue, and it got better after that and got some extension back and was able to throw. But again, that's an experience where without that, I'm not quite sure how the career turns out, because it gave me a different perspective. And it gave me the perspective of, enjoying the game a little bit more, not taking it quite so seriously, understanding that baseball isn't all there is to life. When I was younger and when I was in college, I took bad outings really, really hard.
Yeah.
And they stayed with me for a long time. Pretty competitive person. Don't like to lose. And when I lost, I wasn't a very happy camper and wasn't very fun to be around. And unfortunately, might have taken that out on some people around me as well. And learning get away from that and learning that, playing baseball is really a privilege and an opportunity, and just getting to enjoy the game. I ended up getting released by the Padres actually the day after I threw to hitters for the first time since my surgery. So I hadn't even pitched in a game, but I'll never forget, the Quebec Capitals in the Can-Am League, gave me an opportunity to go down there. And ironically, I get down there, and first day I sprained my ankle doing PFPs, get a cleat caught in the grass and go over on it. So I have basically one outing to try to make this team. It was good enough to throw about a week later. And I remember just being out there and just being thankful that, hey, I get to play again. And so again, for me, that was a perspective I tried to hold on to a lot more as the days went on and as the career went on, of, hey, I'm really fortunate to get to do what I get to do, and to try to not take that for granted. And I think for me that as much as I didn't enjoy that experience of going through the rehab and trying to get back from it and all of that stuff, understanding that, if you have a bad outing, it's not the end of the world. And then that, it is a privilege to get to play this game, and it really helped me enjoy it a lot more and not take it as for granted as what I did at one point in time.
It makes me wonder, and this is probably an unanswerable question, but just thinking about, at what point because we hear so many pitchers have that surgery, and I just was thinking as you were talking about, is it worse to have to go through that before you even get to where you're trying to go and think you're never going to get there, perhaps, maybe go through that dark place, or to have it and then lose it? I mean, there's no good option there, but it's just at that stage in your career to still be trying to strive to move up the ladder, so to speak, to have that kind of setback, that has to take you to some pretty tough places.
Yeah, and I think part of it depends on how the rehab goes. The success rate for that surgery is extremely high. I think it's over 90%. Most guys come back every bit as good as they were before, if not better, based on the rehab that you do. Again, I feel like mine was a little bit unique in the fact that I really struggled for those first 4 or 5 months, just getting range of motion back. After that, once I went in for that second surgery, it went a lot better. The days weren't quite as dark.
Yeah.
You could kind of start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The arm started to feel a little bit better, all those good things. And so then you're just focused on your rehab, which helps a lot. But as far as where you would rather have it done, I mean, the nice thing is if you get it done when you're in the big leagues, the rehab paychecks are a little bit nicer.
I was going to say,
than they are
you're
in the
covered.
minors. And you maybe get at least they're invested in you a little bit more, and you get a little bit more of an opportunity to show that you're healthy and to come back. Like I said, I got released the day after I faced hitters, just because that's kind of how it works up there. Is they have to cover your rehab and cover the cost for your rehab, and then it's like, okay, well, he proved he was healthy, we don't need him anymore. And there were some other things that went on. There was a new regime in the Padres system, and I wasn't one of their guys. I wasn't a guy they had drafted. And looking back on it, you understand the decision a little bit more. Obviously, at the time, it was like, what's going on? I thought I'd at least get an opportunity, and unfortunately didn't. But again, things happen for a reason, and without that experience, my perspective probably doesn't change the way that it did, and I think that helped me later on in my career.
Did you pitch any differently? Did it change how you pitched once you were healthy again?
No, I don't think it really changed anything. Once I was able to trust the arm and understand that I could let it go and I could reach back if I had to and try to go get that little bit extra if I needed to, it was back to kind of the same old deal. It was just a matter of, again, finding the mechanics and finding your release point and being able to throw the breaking ball and things like that. When you take a year off, it takes a little bit of time to find all that again and to be consistent with it. I would say with the Tommy John, like, some guys come back from it that next year, and it's really impressive when they come back and they have a good season, because I found it took probably about a year and a half before I felt like I was back to where I was pre-surgery, just from a pitchability standpoint. The arm was fine, the velocity was fine, the stuff was even fine, but just finding that release point, being consistent with it, took a little bit.
And as you mentioned, so maybe some things happen for certain reasons or whatever, because here we are now a couple of years later, and you're driving down to Florida. Were you in Arizona first? Like, did you do both cactus and grapefruit in that tryout spring there, where you ended up with Minnesota, I know, but I read somewhere that you had to drive all the way down to Florida. It's not a short drive. I've done it. So how did that all play out in 2011, and then you end up signing with the Twins? Yeah,
so 2011 is definitely an interesting off season, and one of my favorite stories, really. I had an aunt and uncle living in the Phoenix area, so I was talking with my agent at this point, and not my advisor anymore, because we were done.
You're a pro.
Yeah, now we're a pro, so we can have the agent. And generally each organization will have some open tryouts before spring training, where they'll invite guys out to throw for them or to take some swings, things like that. They're really hard tryouts to get out of because most teams are trying to condense their rosters at that point in time, not expand them. So what my agent and I had decided is that we were going to line up 3 tryouts down in Arizona. It was going to be with the Brewers, the Rockies, and the Cardinals, and do them every other day. So you got a day of rest in between. And they were in February, I believe. So like I was throwing back home in my old high school gym off of like I think I used an archery target for a mound, throwing into cinder blocks to kind of get ready. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I've got to kind of go all in, and I've got to do whatever I can to get ready. So I called my college pitching coach up. He was then the head coach at the University of Kentucky, and I said, hey, do you mind if I come down a couple weeks before these tryouts, throw off a real mound, maybe throw to some hitters just to get myself as prepared as possible to go to these things? And we have a great relationship. And he said, yeah, no problem. Come on down. So I needed my car in Arizona to get around to the tryouts. So I drove from North Alfred, Saskatchewan down to Arizona. I think that one's about 27 hours. Hopped on a flight over to Lexington, Kentucky. While I was there, my college coach called up a couple of scouts from the Twins to come watch me throw. We got to set the tryout up in a way that kind of accentuated my strengths. So I got to face hitters. I got to face them multiple times. And obviously, if you've followed my career at all, I'm not a big stuff guy. I'm not going to blow you away with 95 or with a devastating breaking ball or anything like that. But what I could do is I could pitch a little bit and command the baseball a little bit. And the way that we had this set up, I got to showcase my strengths. And after that tryout, there was a man by the name of Tim O'Neill in Irwin. Irwin was an area scout. Tim O'Neill was what's called a cross-checker, who's a little bit higher up. And, we talked after there, and they said, hey, we like you. We don't know if there's anything we can do for you right now, again, because the rosters generally in spring, you're trying to contract them, not expand them. So they said, go to your open tryouts there in Arizona. If nothing happens, give us a call, and we'll see where we're at. So a few days later, I fly back to Arizona. I think the first tryout was lined up was with the Cardinals. It ended up getting canceled the day before. So found an indoor facility to go throw in. End up going and throwing for the Brewers, who drafted me out of high school, throw a bullpen. Felt like I threw fine. They came back, said, hey, we think you could use a little bit more time in indie ball, and basically saying, yeah, we don't think you're good enough. And then the Rockies tryout was a huge open tryout. There were about 50 guys there. The tryout was you threw a bullpen to get loose, and then you threw 15 pitches. So you threw 5 pitches to 3 different hitters, and that was your tryout. And I kind of thought, well, that's probably not going to work for me because, again, they're just looking for something special, right? Yeah. They're looking for somebody who's throwing 98 that fell through the cracks and has figured it out all of a sudden, or the really good breaking ball, and that wasn't me. And obviously that one didn't work out either. So I called Earl and Tim back up, and I was like, hey, where are we at here? And they're like, well, there was a lot of red tape to cut through, so they were going to have to buy out my indie ball contract. Some of the higher ups wanted to see me throw. They wanted me to take a medical. They're like, we might be able to fly over in a few days and get this stuff done, and then we'll see. But it wasn't a guarantee. And I actually had a friend living in Fort Myers at the time, and that's where the Twin Spring training is, ironically enough. And they said, well, if you need a place to crash, you can crash here. Why don't you just drive? And I looked it up on MapQuest, and I was
MapQuest. There's a reference.
Yeah. I don't know if it was 36 or 42 hours. I can't even remember anymore, but it was a long ways, and I was like, oh man, that's gonna be a long drive.
All the way across Texas. Yeah.
Oh, have you ever driven in Southwest Texas?
No, not yet.
It's the only place I've driven that's more miserable than Saskatchewan. It was unbelievable. You couldn't even find a radio station for about 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
It was wild. And yes, radio back then. Didn't have my CDs with me. So
didn't have a CD wallet.
Yeah, that's right. But anyways, so they mentioned, why don't you just drive? And I thought about it for a little bit, and again, going down there was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, got to go all in. And I thought, all right, I don't want to have to look myself in the mirror in 10 years and ask, hey, what if I would have done this? So I called Tim back up, and I said, hey, how about this? I'll hop in my car tomorrow. I'll drive over. I'll take your medical. I'll throw for whoever you want me to throw for. I'll do whatever you need me to do. If you guys like me enough to give me an invite to spring, you can reimburse me. If not, don't even worry about it. I'll go home on my own dime. Wasn't looking forward to that trip either, because that was another about 40-hour drive. Yep. So was hoping that didn't work out. He made a couple phone calls and called me back about 10 minutes later and said, yeah, that'll work. And so I hopped in my car and made the drive from Phoenix, Arizona area to Fort Myers, Florida. And luckily it all worked out. So was really fortunate that was the way it went. Like I said, wasn't looking forward to the drive home from there, but luckily I didn't have to make it.
Was that one night on the way? Like, did you have to stay
Stop
overnight?
two nights. I think it was 3 12-hour days, pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, stopped twice.
I like me a good long drive, but a lot of those in a row is a lot to deal with. So where in this point then is, because this is the same year that you playing your first Pan Am games as well. So where did that fit in, and how much did that sort of help your, I guess, resume and your chances of catching on with the Twins? How much of a role, if any, did that play in your performance there?
So the Pan Ams were actually after that season.
Yeah,
so
okay, it was
that
later
wouldn't
that
help
year.
me at all.
No.
Actually getting with the Twins. So because of the season that I had, I got the opportunity to play for the national
Right.
team for the first time. So I hadn't even played on the junior national team. And Greg Hamilton called me after the year and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" And it was actually the Baseball World Cup that year
Yep.
instead of the Premier 12, because that didn't exist yet. And then the Pan Am, and then the Pan Am Games. And I went down there, and again, things were just going really well for me and pitched really, really well. I think I only gave up one run in about 28 innings in the two tournaments. It was pretty incredible. That one run happened to be in the final where we managed to beat the States 2-1.
Yeah.
And that was really special. That was actually Canada's first gold medal in an international men's tournament. So really neat to be a part of that and to play such an influential role was really special, and certainly a confidence builder. Those tournaments are interesting because the Pan Am Games are generally non-40-man guys.
Right.
So they're teams that are composed of good players, but not elite talent, I guess, if you're looking at the big leagues, for instance. But understanding that I can get AA, AAA caliber hitters out and do it fairly consistently was certainly a confidence builder. And then I think in 2012, we had the World Baseball Classic qualifier.
Yes.
Just before the season started. So I went in actually through the final of that against Germany. That one was, we had a pretty good team there, and the countries that we were playing against, baseball wasn't as big back then for them. I think it was Great Britain was there, Germany was there. I can't even remember who the last team was. Anyways, we rolled through that one fairly easily. But again, another confidence builder, getting to go through that and getting to play for the national team and all of those good things. And yeah, from there, the career kind of took off a little bit.
Yeah, it must be a real change too, because you're grinding through the minors, you're doing your work, but then even if it is these, as you say, sort of non-40 man or whatever you want to call it, but like that's a bigger stage still because it's an international spotlight, right? Mm-hmm. So just in general, what is it? I mean, because that was your first of several, opportunities to wear that Canadian jersey over the years, and you win another gold in 2015. I'm trying to jump back and forth a little bit here, but like the Canadian Team Canada part of your career, where does that sit in terms of the pride and what was it like to kind of put on that jersey and play for the country?
Yeah, those experiences are right up there. I maybe put my debut just a little bit higher just because of how it went, debut in the majors.
Yeah.
But other than that, playing for the national team has probably been some of the best highlights of my career and some of the things that I've enjoyed the most. Getting the opportunity to start the gold medal game in 2011, getting to play in 3 World Baseball Classics, being a part of the Pan Am gold medal game in 2015. Anytime Greg Hamilton called, I got to play in the Premier 12 a couple times, maybe just once. But Greg does a great job making those experiences really enjoyable. And anytime I had the opportunity to play, I was in. I was all in, and we had a lot of fun. We played good baseball. For the most part in those experiences, and getting to go from a young guy to then a veteran in the last couple times I played was neat to kind of go full circle and see the younger guys coming up, and they're a lot more talented probably than what I was, but it's really fun to see and fun to watch and just to be a part of that program. It's a tight-knit group. I'm fortunate enough, I generally get invited. They have their fundraising banquet in Toronto in January, so try to get down to that every year and see those guys, and it's always a good time, and we rehash the same old stories every single time, but it's always a blast, and everybody always has a good time doing it. So
well, and I mean, even before you became sort of the veteran on the roster with the Canadian team, you were already inducted into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame just a year after that first Pan Am Games. I think it speaks to a number of things, but for one thing, obviously the impact that you had at the national level so quickly was to be recognized like that. But what does that kind of recognition mean for someone from Saskatchewan? You were, I think, the first Saskatchewan guy to play in the big since Terry Puel in like '91 or something like that. And there's only been a handful. I know Dustin Mulligan came shortly after you as well. But how much pride do you take in being in that Hall of Fame?
Yeah, really special. I think we got inducted as a team.
Okay.
So it was it really meant a lot. Like that was a special group. We had a special group of guys that year, and to go in together as that team again. Like I said, I think that was Canada's first gold medal at an international men's competition. It had changed a little bit. Cuba wasn't quite what they were. I think Cuba had won the Pan Ams for 40 years in a row before we won that. And it's just because like that was before everybody was defecting. So they were basically going there with a bunch of big leaguers. And for a lot of those Pan Am games, other teams were college guys because they couldn't even use pro guys. So that had changed a little bit. We were lucky. We faced Cuba actually in those Pan Am games and got beat pretty good by them. They had a pretty good team. Gurriel was on that team. Jose Abreu was still on that team. They had a guy by the name of Cespedes who was a legend over in Japan. So like they were really, really good. They could really hit, and the States managed to beat them in the other semi, and we beat Mexico. So that probably helped us a little bit. Yeah. Would have been interesting to see getting to pitch against Cuba instead of the States, how that would have gone, but thankful it went the way it did. But again, being a part of the Baseball Hall of Fame, the National Baseball Hall of Fame is always special. And being the first guy to debut or to play in the majors since '91, like you said, Terry Poole, was also really special. It was kind of the first time since the internet had been around. Yeah. And so seeing the text messages, the Facebook messages, the emails all come in with the voices of support from people you played with or against or in your community or in the province in general was really special. And then again, for the first couple games to go the way that they did and knowing you had that support from home, it was a really great feeling. And like I said, it's hard to really put into words what it meant, but being able to represent this province and do it the way I was able to those first couple games, feel like I did it the right way. Bunch of blue collar workers here. We got people that know what hard work is. Things weren't given to them. I felt like it really kind of resembled my career path a little bit. And yeah, it was just a really special feeling getting all those messages of support, understanding that the entire province is watching and behind you and rooting for you. It was a lot of fun and something that I'll always cherish.
It is. I just think back to my childhood, and it really does mean something, even if you don't know the person, have no connection to them at all, to see someone in the highest level of a sport that you enjoy as a fan that's from where you're from. There's just something about that. I remember collecting, they had these Panini sticker albums you used to be able to get at the grocery store, and I used to buy those, and I had I used to start collecting in the late 80s, and I remember having a Terry Poole on the Astros page and seeing Melville, Saskatchewan on there, and first thinking it was a typo, and then just being like, oh, that's cool, and sort of kind of keeping tabs on him a little bit at the tail end of his career, just because he's from the same province as I was from. That was always, that just added something for sure. All right, we've mentioned and referenced it a few times. I know LB threw it up. I don't know if you can re-rack it again there, LB, but let's go back to that debut because we do have the highlights. You
got
here.
The highlights, dude. I saw.
And I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna roll off because I think I have the line here. This is 2013 against the Kansas City Royals. 8 1/3, 4 hits, 2 Ks, 1 walk, 0 earned runs. How badly did you want the complete game? I know we're going to get to that in a second because you got one right after this. But you talked about being so competitive. How tough was it to get taken out in the 9th of this one?
So I'm pretty bitter actually because I found the game. I found a replay of the game a couple years, maybe a year ago now. And so there's a play in the 9th inning. Lorenzo Cain hits a ball to third base, and we try to turn 2. And it's bang, bang at first base, and they call him safe. And when you're able to slow it down, back then there wasn't replay.
No replay, yep.
He was out. And if he gets called out right there, I got nobody on base. We're in the 9th. I walked Hosmer. I ended up walking him on 4 pitches. But I still think they gave me a chance to finish that game. And I think it would have been the first complete game in a debut since Andy Van Hecken, I think, did it in 2005. I actually looked that up.
Former teammate of yours, opponent of yours, pardon.
Yeah, played against him in Korea, ironically enough. And, nowadays, nobody gets that opportunity because if you're a prospect, they don't let you throw 100 pitches.
They don't want to.
And if you're not a prospect, they're still going to the pen. Like, so many things have to go right just to give you that opportunity. It can't be a close game probably because they're going to go to the bullpen to win the game and all of those things. So that would have been pretty cool. Obviously, it was still pretty cool getting to do that. That was the play right there. Actually, there it was. He was out.
It's a reputation safe call because he was one of the fastest guys in the bigs at that point. I think he was known for jumping over cars too, or something like that.
Obviously, you can see I wasn't very happy there. And again, once I saw the replay, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, it's not quite on Galarraga's perfect game that Jim Joyce kind of blew, but for me, that was
the same season, wasn't
it? Was that in 13 as well?
It might have been 11 actually. It might have been 11.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. I couldn't tell you that, but yeah, that one hurt. It would have been nice feather in the cap. As far as you talk about being competitive and coming out of that game, I was gassed. It was really hot and humid in Kansas City that night. Yeah. I think it was about 38 degrees and the humidity was 90 to 100%. And I was on my last legs. I think it was at 106, 107, something like that. And the Hosmer at bat kind of kind of did it in where I missed 4 times and everything had been, I'd been able to locate up until that point, and just I didn't even put up much of a fight on that one because it was like there were a couple feelings going through your head. One's the relief of, okay, this is done, like this is about as good as it could go, and this was really special and really neat, and we're gonna win this game, and that's pretty awesome. And at the same time, you want to finish it, but right there in that moment, I knew that was kind of it. I was gonna have a tough time finishing it, so it was the right move. And then, like you said, Cleveland came up 6 days later and managed to finish that one. So that was pretty special.
That was, and then you mentioned the walk. That was your only walk in that game too. That Hosmer walk there, the last AB. Before we go, we'll talk. I want to get to that second start, but in the moment, as you're making that debut and you're going through it, and now you're getting into the 5th, and you're going through the 6th. Like, are you processing that, or is it all about focusing on next pitch, next hitter? Or were there moments where you're like reminding yourself, this is my first start, or like, did you do that before the game? Like, how did you process all of it, I guess?
Yeah, I gave myself a moment when I walked out onto the field. So that was kind of the thing, you give yourself a moment as you get out onto the big league diamond, knowing that you're going to actually play. So I was fortunate. I got called up a few days before to get kind of used to how things work there, pre-game stuff and get with the guys and whatnot. So it was a little bit more comfortable that way. But getting to walk out on Kauffman Stadium, knowing that you're going to actually pitch and start the game, that was it was like, okay, walked out of the dugout. And ironically, the first thing I hear is there's some guys over our dugout. They're like, Albers. And I don't know if you saw them. They got some.
Yes, the shirtless.
Yeah, you bet. So those were all guys that I had played with growing up, and I had no idea they were going to be there. But that was the first thing I heard when I walked out of the dugout. And so you get a little chuckle there, and it helps you relax a little bit. But that was the kind of my moment of, I'm going to take it in, enjoy this moment where you've worked so hard. It's kind of the culmination of what you've been working towards. And take that moment, take those few seconds to have it there. But then once the game starts, it's all about, what do I need to do to get the next guy out? What did I throw? How am I going to execute the next pitch? And once the game starts, it's another game. I threw one of the worst pregame pens of my life before that game. Again, it was really hot and humid. I don't know if it was nerves or if it was just I couldn't feel the ball. I don't know how much I should talk about this, but there's a certain type of sunscreen you could use, the bullfrog spray, that if you mix that with rosin, it created a little tack. This was kind of before all the spider tack and the pelican and all that.
Not getting your glove inspected after every.
Yeah, we weren't doing that yet. So, used a little bit of that for actually the first time in my career, ironically, because I thought after my bullpen, I was like, man, I got to do something. Ball's going everywhere, and I had no idea where it was going. And so used that a little bit, and obviously that worked pretty well for me. So used it the rest of that season, I think. But
it's tough because you can't get an endorsement deal out of this.
No, I know, right?
Unfortunately,
where's Bullfrog when you need them, right? And it's crazy because that's the only sunscreen that kind of did that. It was a Bullfrog spray that I thought you had to use. The rest of them didn't give you the same tack. But I remember it being really humid in Kansas City and the ball just kind of slipping out of my hands. The big league balls are rubbed up a little bit different. Yep. They didn't do it in AAA at that point in time. They used the special mud, and I had a really tough time gripping it. Again, it might have been some nerves as well, but yeah, use some of that to help with the grip, I guess, and it went really well. And
then, as we referenced, the next one, you get the complete game shutout. Not just a complete game, but a complete game shutout against Cleveland. Now, I think we have that too, but was that also on the road? No, this was at home.
That one's at home.
This was at home. Yeah. So, I mean, you must have been feeling pretty good after the way things went in game 1 to come out, and now this time you get to go the full 9 innings. So just take me through this one.
Yeah, so that's probably the best start I ever had in my career. It's a complete game shutout, 2-hitter in the big leagues. I don't think anyone got to second base. I think in the first 2 games I started, the only runner that was at second base was after the walk to Hosmer in the first 2 starts, which, again, I punched out 4 guys, so it's not like I was punching out the world or anything like that. Just things were going right. Those 2 starts, I'd had actually a string where my last 3 AAA starts, I think I'd gone 8, 9, and 8 or something like that as well. So I was feeling really good. I was at a stage where I felt like I could really command the baseball. If I wanted to throw a pitch down and away, it was down and away. If I wanted to come up and in, it was up and in, and I wasn't missing. And
so play at second base there.
That's Pedro. He made one of the best plays. He makes a great play. Dozier makes a great play. And those are and then there was one other one. Can't remember the other one. 3 plays in that game. Outstanding plays. It gets you another inning. That's what gets you the complete game, right? Is those 3 defensive plays. Florimon made one of the best plays up the middle I've ever seen. He goes to his glove side, fields it, rolls, makes the throw, somehow throws the guy out. Dozier goes deep into right field to make a diving catch, and those are the kinds of things you remember. Like those are the plays that make the difference right there, and allow you to have that moment. And so those were really special as well. Again, it was just one of those things where those first 2 nights everything went right. Balls that got hit hard found gloves. Balls that didn't get hit hard found gloves, and you feel really good when that's happening for you on the mound because you feel like, okay, if I fall behind, I can go throw a pitch in the zone and I'm going to get the guy out. I've been on the other side of that where it feels like, all right, if I don't strike him out, somehow it's going to fall. So, been on both sides of that, and it's a good feeling when you're feeling like, not that you're invincible, but that it gives you a lot of confidence knowing that you can really command the baseball, throw it where you want to, and good things are going to happen when you make guys swing the bat. And that's how I was feeling for those 2 nights.
We always hear about when guys are working on a no-hitter and how everyone just stays away. But was that the experience for you in the dugout between innings, or were you what was the sort of the vibe in the other half of the game when you weren't on the mound? And was it Gardenhire still the manager?
Gardenhire was,
Gardy, yeah. So I've heard he's quite a good players manager. So excellent, just what was that side of the experience like for you as you're in your own mind probably between innings, but were guys just staying away, or did they feel like something was brewing there?
Yeah, I think most guys understand different pitchers are different, and most of the guys up there didn't know me really well at that point in time yet. And so you generally kind of leave the pitcher alone in between innings unless they approach you. And so, I'd talk to my catcher in between innings pretty much every time. It's like, hey, this is what we're going to try to do with this guy. This is what we'll try to do here. We're going to go first pitch this, et cetera, just so that we're on the same page. Other than that, usually your pitching days are pretty lonely. Not many guys are talking to you. You're not wanting to talk to many guys either because you're trying to stay locked in. I think probably the best example of that is Max Scherzer. I don't know if you've heard about the stories of him on game day.
Yes,
once the headphones in, you do not talk to him, and you better understand that, right? And I've seen him pitch live, and he is. I consider myself a pretty intense competitor, but he's on another level. And a great teammate. I've heard nothing but good things about him as a teammate, but on start day, you better stay out of his way. And that's just pitchers are a little bit of creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And you get into that routine. It's what helps you feel comfortable and be confident and players are generally understand that and have the wherewithal to stay away from you if that's what you want.
I was laughing when you were talking about wanting to finish it out in your debut, and imagine if you tried to pull what Scherzer did in the ALCS, just barking at the skip when he comes out to. It's like, wow, this is a bold move from a rookie here.
Yeah, that's probably how you get yourself sent down to AAA real quick.
Exactly. So yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Gardy.
it was.
All right, Gardy. Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for letting me go this long.
Appreciate it. At least you sent me out for the 9th. I just didn't get it done. So.
We could be here for hours talking about it, but it's interesting because 2 incredible outings to start things off. But it's the cruelty sometimes of sports too, right? Nothing's guaranteed. So over the course of the years, the up and down, did you ever look back on those days, and how did you kind of think about them as you were still kind of going through sort of going up and down, going overseas, coming back? Where did that kind of register for you, and how did that maybe fuel you, or did it?
I think when you're looking at it, you're just so focused on the future, the next game, preparing yourself as much as you can to have a good outing the next time. I think that was something that I learned going through the different levels of professional baseball is, worry about what you can control. And that's such a cliche quote, and it's so easy to say, but it's really hard to do. And so the way that I tried to approach things in all of those seasons was, I'm going to do whatever I can to prepare myself as best I can for my next outing. And that's all I can do. That's what's under my control. I can't even necessarily control the outcome. All I can do is make sure that I'm as prepared as I can be. And then you got to let the chips fall where they may. For me, that included, like I said, just getting ready for each start and then doing whatever I could to help the team on start days and not on start days, whatever. And I felt like if I did those 2 things, that wherever the chips may fall, I could sit back and I could say, okay, I did what I felt like I could do, and have to be able to live with the results after that. And obviously playing overseas, going to Korea in 2014 was a tough decision. After the year in 2013, I felt like I pitched okay. You mentioned the first 2 starts were outstanding. After that, it wasn't great. I think I go 0-5. I have a couple decent starts in there. We don't score. We didn't score hardly any runs.
It's a tough year for the Twins.
It was a tough go. I don't think we scored a run while I was on the mound for my last 5 starts or something ridiculous like
Wow.
that. Should have beat Verlander that year. We end up coming out of the game and we give up a 3-run homer with a couple of my guys on base, and we were up 6-4 at the time. That would have been a nice little feather in the cap.
Yeah.
But like, it's crazy to think about my first 4 starts were James Shields from the Royals, who was their ace at the time.
Yeah.
It was Danny Salazar from Cleveland that nobody probably knows, but at the time, up and comer, pretty good pitcher. Chris Sale and Justin Verlander. And I was like, hey, welcome to the show, kid. Here you go.
Yeah.
And should have won 3 of those games. Unfortunately, that it doesn't always happen that way. But it was like, wow, this is wild, right? And so again, that was my introduction. And going back to 2014, they had signed a couple guys in the offseason. They signed Phil Hughes and Ricky Nolasco. They still had, I think it was Kevin Correa and Mike Pelfrey under contract.
Yep.
So those guys were all going to be starters. Like, they were all going to be in the rotation unless somebody got hurt. So there were 4 spots taken and there was 1 left. And when I looked at spring training that year, Kyle Gibson was kind of their top prospect. He had a little bit of time the year before, pitched okay. But then also in baseball, you have what are called option years, where if you get called up and sent down, you use an option if you're on the 40-man roster. And so once you have 3 of those, then if they send you back down, anyone can claim you and put them on and put you on their roster. So you kind of lose a guy for nothing. And we had 3 arms that were in that situation. It was Scott Diamond, it was Sam Deduno, and might have been Liam Hendricks. I can't remember the third one, or Vance Worley maybe, one of those 2 guys. And it's like, I could go to spring training, get everybody out, and it's not going to matter. I'm going to start the year in AAA. When you start the year in AAA, it gets tough. I went through that a few times where you have to, for me at least, I always had to put up really good numbers in order to get an opportunity, and that opportunity generally didn't come till later in the year because I'm not a stuff guy. And you're always going to take the guy who has the higher ceiling first. And, they have to go up and not have success in order for you to get the opportunity. And eventually that's just not realistic for that to happen every year. And so understanding that part of it, that was what led to the decision to go to Korea. Financially, it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. And then understanding that even though I had worked my entire career to put myself in the position to possibly make a big league team out of spring training, the chances of that were almost none in that year. And so when I look at the opportunity that there was in Korea, and again, from a financial standpoint, it just made too much sense not to go.
Jumping a bit, but I mean, we can't talk about your big league career without talking about your, hitting as well, but I mean, like, you're with Seattle in 2017, and I mean, this is, 1 or 2 years before we brought in the universal, or maybe 3 or so before they brought in the universal DH. So you're starting in a National League park, and that means you're hitting. And we were joking before we started recording, but you might have the best batting average of all time, not just for pitchers, right? Because you never got out, or at least not a recorded.
There's no might. I do. I have the best career batting average in big league history, which is funny. And that was a funny year actually too, because in 2017 I played for the Braves. I started the year with the Braves in AAA, and I hadn't hit since high school. So I hadn't hit since 2004. And this is 2017, and the last time I hit was for the North Battleford Beavers in Saskatchewan. So if you were throwing 82, that was gas.
Yeah.
And so luckily I got a few at-bats in the minors to the point where I felt like I could at least compete with a fastball. If you threw me anything off speed, I had no chance, none. Like, I remember the first slider I saw, I swung and I missed at it, and I turned back to the catcher and asked, "Is that a slider?" And he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God, where did it go?" It was here, and then it wasn't. And I was like, I got no chance at that. So luckily for me, I got a lot of fastballs from Fultonevich, and one of them put one in play. And I don't know if you saw the hit, but it's a line drive in the box score. We'll leave it at that if you guys aren't showing that one.
And an RBI.
And an RBI. Bases were loaded. We ended up winning the game, I think, by 2 runs. So it was ended up being a big play. But pretty neat to have that in the back of the back pocket as well.
And you got the win too in the game. So you not only did you win, but you helped your own cause at the plate too, which we don't get to see that anymore unless Shohei's playing. So I miss that a little bit, even though I do like a lot of the evolution of baseball as it's gone on, but I do kind of miss watching pitchers hitting just because it added a whole different dynamic to the strategy of the game, and you get to see who the real athletes are too.
Changes the game a lot.
Yeah.
If you have a pitcher that can't hit, the way you navigate a lineup is completely different. Understanding that all of a sudden the 7-8 guys, you can pitch around them a little bit if you get into a tight spot, and obviously that's kind of in the first 6 innings. After that, they're going to pinch hit anyways. But those first couple times through, it definitely changes the way you navigate a lineup. With the exception if you had a guy like Bumgarner in there, or Kershaw, those guys were pretty well known for being pretty good hitters. So a big advantage for them, right, in the NL. But yeah, if you had a guy that was an out, for me, fortunately, that day, Mike Fultonevich, not a very good hitter. I haven't looked up his stats, but I can't imagine that they're very good. So that was also helpful.
I mean, I think you really made the most of your MLB time, because not only did you have an electrifying, start to the career, you get you have a hit and an RBI, 1,000 batting average. You also got a save in there as
Yeah,
well.
I got one of those.
So you kind of checked a lot of boxes in those appearances. Speaking of appearances, I do briefly, because we've talked about the Jays off the top of the World Series, and I joke about your time with them, but how much did that mean to you to get that one game with the Blue Jays? Where did that register for you?
That's pretty special. I mean, growing up, Blue Jays fan, Expos fan, right? The Canadian teams. And I got a call at about 9:00 that morning saying, "Hey, we need you in Cleveland tonight," because they'd had an extra inning game the day before, so they didn't have any fresh arms, and it happened to be my start day. So if they needed 6-7 innings, I was going to be able to do that. That's why I got that call. And so they send a car, you hop in it, you get to Cleveland, and you get to put that Blue Jays uniform on. It was pretty cool. Obviously, I wish my stint with them would have been a little bit longer. I ended up getting sent down after the game for the same reason. They needed another fresh arm for the next day. But I still regret not having the balls to shake Russ Martin off on an 0-1 changeup that I threw. It's probably my worst pitch, and obviously Russ is behind the plate, and it's not the wrong call or anything like that. I just didn't execute and ended up giving up a 3-run homer with 2 of Burley's guys on base, and after that the outing goes fine. But yeah, still kind of regret that one. Wish I would have shook to maybe the cutter or another fastball in or something like that. But yeah, just to have the opportunity to put on that jersey that you got to watch guys play in growing up and on TV, that was always the dream, is I'm going to be a Blue Jay one day. And even though it was only for one day, I still got to be a Blue Jay. So that was pretty incredible.
You got to live out that childhood dream for sure. Not everyone gets, and very few people in fact get a chance to do that, whatever that dream might be. So then you end up in Japan for 3 years, and then I'm not trying to skip over it, but we were getting a little short on time. But I remember talking to you in 2021 when you were getting loose, getting ready to go down. You got an invite by the Twins to go back, another chance to get with the big league club, and you talked about getting ready for that first initial tryout and throwing against cinder blocks. But now we got a training center. You're here at an actual facility that has mounds and things. And I remember, of course, it was in the middle of COVID, or as we were going through all that. But how meaningful was it for you to not only get that call, but to then be able to get back and play 5 games with the Twins in 2021 to kind of tie a bow on the big league career?
Yeah, it was really nice. I mean, at the time, I was hoping that wouldn't be the bow.
Right,
on
for
the big
sure.
league
In the
career,
moment,
right?
yeah.
But getting the opportunity to come back and play in the States and know that I could still play at that level. Won the first start. The second start ended up, I think, being the worst one of my career. Still not sure if I was tipping something that day or not against the Tampa Bay Rays, but it was special. Any time again, that year especially, I think I really got to enjoy that moment, understanding that there's a chance this doesn't happen again for me. So getting the opportunity to play in the big leagues that season, it didn't start well for me in AAA. The analytics and things like that, we tried to do some different things and it just didn't work out. So I went back kind of to throwing the way that I had my entire career, and had a lot more success. And then again, later on in the year, was throwing the ball really well and got the call to get an opportunity. And first couple outings threw against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, it went pretty well. Gave up a homer to Stanton, I think. And then ironically, my only wins with the Twins are starts that I didn't give up any runs in. So pitched against the Brewers a few days later, and was mad at Rocco. He pulled me in the 6th, and I was like, "What are you doing, man? I feel good. Like we're good to go." And so that was just how the game had changed, right?
Yeah.
We ended up winning 2-0, I think, in that one, and then had the Rays start where that one didn't go very well, and like I said, probably the worst one of my career, and got sent back down, came back up, all those good things again, and yeah, but. Just getting that opportunity, even in AAA that year, coming back to the States after being in Japan, and I loved my time in Japan. They treated me incredibly well. Played with Yamamoto for 3 years. Got to first row seats to see him kind of develop and come up, and seeing him now on TV is pretty neat. But coming back, getting the opportunity to play in the States, speak English again to everybody, it was a lot of fun. And again, being a little bit of an older guy then, kind of a veteran. I really enjoyed that 2021 season.
And full circle too, because it's the team that you broke in with as well. The Twins, you must have that must be that. I mean, we talk about obviously fulfilling the dream of getting to be in that game with the Jays, but you had 3 different stints with the Twins. So that organization must hold a very big place in your heart.
Oh, no question. I mean, they're someone I'd cheer for. Them Jays, it would have been tough. It was even tough with the Mariners. My year with the Mariners in 2017, probably the best year of my career. It was the best year I had in the big league. So even seeing them play against the Jays, I was like, oh, I don't know.
Loyalty's divided.
Yeah, it was. It was a little bit. Especially being that I was a little bit bitter with the Jays and only getting 1 day with them, right?
Sure.
So
that comes back.
there's some bitterness there, but at the same time, great to see. And yeah, I think that just speaks to how I approach the game, right? Being able to come back a third time with the Twins, them always being willing to give me an opportunity. Same thing in 16. I didn't have any other opportunities. In 21, there were very, very few. And so for them to continue to bring me back, I think it kind of spoke volumes to kind of how I approach the game and being a good teammate and things of that nature. And ironically, in 2022, I had actually agreed to terms with the Mariners.
Right, yeah, that's
but
right.
unfortunately failed the physical, and that was kind of the end of the career as a soft throwing lefty. Now I failed the physical. Well, didn't have time to get a second opinion because it was the strike year. Actually, that was a whole weird situation, but it was unfortunate the way it ended. I mean, very rarely do you get to walk out of the game on your own terms, and obviously,
True.
I wish I could have gotten another year or two, but when I get to look back and reflect on my career, I don't have very many regrets and felt like I overachieved for what I had, and that's a pretty good feeling.
Are you removed enough? I mean, it's like you said, it's only been 3 years really since you retired. How is that enough time to really get perspective, or is that something you feel like over time you're going to get more of it? Or it sounds like you were gaining it as you went because of all the different experiences you had. You were kind of accruing that sort of context and perspective all the way along the way.
Yeah, again, I think I like the way you said that. I think accruing that perspective along the way is a good way of putting it. I do feel like I've been removed from the game long enough now where I'm not upset about how things ended, or not too upset, I guess, about how things ended. Again, would have loved to have played another couple years. Don't know if the body would have held out or not. Actually tried to get it going this year for a Pan Am qualifier and just couldn't do it. So know that those are probably my last competitive innings, at least at any kind of level. And like I said, I'm fortunate in that I don't have very many regrets. Even with Korea, wasn't the greatest year of my life, wasn't the greatest experience. I still don't regret going there with that experience. Love Japan, love the time I got to play for the different organizations. I was always treated really well. The time I got in the big leagues, the national team. When I get to take a step back and look at all of those things, I just feel really grateful and really fortunate to have gotten to experience all those things. And again, having that feeling where I felt like with the stuff that I had, throwing 84, 86, maybe touching 88 every once in a while, not a very good curveball, little dumpy cutter, loopy or very average changeup, to be able to do the things that I got to do and to experience the things that I got to experience, I was really fortunate and like I said, felt like I overachieved.
Well, I would say that having spoken to you a few times and before today, but also today, I think that the mental goes with that because of the type of pitcher where I think that helps because you have to be cerebral and crafty and think about how you're doing this because you can't rely on just stuff. And so I think that speaks to the other side too, about how you kind of go through the career and go through life because it's all about figuring out the mechanics and how to navigate it all, right?
I would agree 100%. I mean, I was never a guy that could say, hey, here comes the slider, and if I execute it, you're out. Like, that's what you see right now with the bullpen guys that come in where you Savage with his splitter or Gosman. Like if those guys execute their pitch, good luck. You're not hitting it. I never had that, so you're right. It was all about trying to find a way to navigate a lineup. Hey, how can I exploit this guy's weakness or his approach in this situation? And then the one thing that I could do pretty well was I could command the baseball a little bit and generally throw it where I wanted to. And I do feel like that was a skill of being able to understand what they're trying to do and trying to counteract that. And I give a lot of credit to my college coach for that. One of his big sayings was, you got to pay attention when you're not playing because you got to find a way to get better. You only get so many reps in baseball, especially as a pitcher. Your arm, you can only throw so much. And so paying attention when you're not playing is a big factor. And that's a great way to get better when you're not getting those reps in.
And and just a thought came to my mind when you talk about not many players get to go out on their own terms or to have the great send off. And I was thinking about that the other night when Clayton Kershaw got kind of lit up earlier in the playoffs, and you're thinking, oh, is that the last time we see him? And what an unfortunate way, even though he's had a Hall of Fame career, but then he gets to come out for that one hitter in the 18-inning game, and he gets him out, and then he's out of the game, and you're like, if that's it. That's a pretty nice way to cap it off, but it's very rare that you get that opportunity. So it's nice to hear that that you appreciate all the stops and the things that kind of led to it along the way. Before I wrap up, I want to kind of bring it back around to Saskatchewan baseball because now you're doing some coaching. You were with the Berries last year, but where would you say? I mean, 20 plus years on from when you were, coming up. It feels like this province is in some ways punching above its weight in baseball lately. There's been a lot of big performances on national competitions, that sort of thing, and a lot of players, a lot more players, it feels like. And maybe it's just because I'm more engaged with the sporting world than the average person. But where would you say Saskatchewan baseball is at these days?
I think it's gotten a lot better. I think it's taken leaps and bounds in the last 10, 15 years. The coaching's gotten a lot better. Now we have these indoor facilities that kids are able to play at a lot more. I think the ceiling is still relatively the same. Like it's still really, really hard to get to that major league level. There's a guy by the name of Garrett Hawkins right now who's working his way up, had a great year with the Padres last year. He's probably the closest there is right now from the province. He's from Bigger. But the depth and the level of, that second tier player is so much better than it used to be. Having the academy down in Martin and Regina, Going Yard here, the Berries Academy, right? And all of those things, giving kids an opportunity who feel like they have a chance to go down and play. And there are so many more guys going down to play post-secondarily in the States, whether it's now the rules have all changed. So it's really hard to get to a Division I school out of high school. So most guys are going to a junior college, but the number of players that go down to play now, I feel like is way more than it used to be. And just the quality of players, again, getting those extra reps, getting to play that much more baseball is so helpful. And with the facilities that we have in the city here, especially in Saskatoon, we're really fortunate that way. The Gordie Howe is a great facility and allows us to do a lot of things that just weren't possible 5 years ago. And it's made a big difference, had a big impact on again, I feel like the level of good player in the province.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Hawkins. I think he was Padres minor league pitcher of the year, I think, this year.
Yeah, he had a
too.
great year. I think he had a stretch
double A there.
26 or 27 outings without giving up a run. He had a really, really good season. So hats off to him. Really looking forward. Hopefully he can break through here in the next couple of years.
How much are you enjoying the coaching now that you're in it?
Well, you know what they say, right? Once you can't play, you coach. I wouldn't say I enjoy quite as much as the playing, but it's always fun. It's a challenge. You try to figure out how you can help kids in their journey. And I think that was something that I realized again as I was going on in the career, being kind of that older guy a little bit, having some of those conversations. And now getting the opportunity to coach. I've done a little bit with the junior national team as well, a little bit higher level, which I find really, really enjoyable. And just getting to see the kids and again, try to pass on some wisdom, some advice that maybe helps them along in their journey. And I think that's a big part of it. And continuing to give back to the game that gave me so much. I really appreciate that and am so thankful for the opportunity at Going Yard to do that.
You mentioned junior, because I was going to ask if you have aspirations to one day put on that Canadian jersey again and maybe coach in a Pan Am Games or a World Baseball Classic or something like that. Is that something now that you're on the next stage of your career goals list? Is that something up there?
I would love to. I don't know if that opportunity will come. We've got great coaching staffs up there right now, and Denny Boucher and Greg Hamilton puts a lot of those together. Ernie Witt's always the manager. Yep. You got guys like Paul Quantrill that come back and do it, and then there's kind of a slew of us that played together, like Mike Johnson. I think Mulligan's been down on a few of them. Yep. Chris Rietzma's done a lot with the junior national team, guy that had a great career that's from Alberta. I don't know what's going to come of that and how that's going to look, but there's a lot of great candidates for that. And if the opportunity came up and was able to make it work, I'd certainly be all in. But we'll see what happens.
And of course, right now you're just focused on being dad too, because congratulations are in order. Obviously, a first-time father, a young daughter at home. As we wrap it up here, what does that do? We've been talking a lot about perspective. So what has that done to shape your life perspective? Maybe not your baseball perspective, but maybe that too. I don't know.
Yeah, obviously that's a game changer. I mean, I think anyone that's a parent understands that life changes a little bit once you have a child. And the plan this summer before she came along was to try to get really good at the golf game, and unfortunately she arrived and that didn't happen. So, but it's been great. She's been an unbelievable baby and has made life a lot easier for Mom and I. And my wife Michelle has done just a tremendous job taking care of her. And I'm pretty fortunate because I'm part deaf in my left ear, so I sleep through a lot of it. And I feel bad for Michelle. She's up 2-3 times a night and feeding her and things like that and taking such great care of her, and I sleep through most of it. So sorry, honey. But it's been great. It's really one of those special things in life. And it's just, you're really excited to see how they're going to grow and how they're going to mature. And what the little personality is going to look like. Hopefully she's not too stubborn or doesn't have too much of an attitude, but the dad can still get through to her. But it's been a lot of fun so far, and she's been great.
Well, and somewhere down the road, she's going to get on YouTube and she's going to find those highlights from 2013 and onward. And she'll be, I'm sure, as proud, probably more proud than the rest of us are, of you to have you as one of ours here from Saskatchewan. Andrew, I mean, again, we could go forever. I just certainly just appreciate the time. I really appreciate you just digging into the career and telling us some stories and giving us a sense of what that journey was like. Best of luck with the coaching and with the parenting. And I'm sure we'll catch up down the road. We'll maybe have to do something with the Jays go back to the series next year.
There we go.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
All right, thanks for having me, Ryan. Really appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, more good sports still to come.
Good sport.
Well, as I said during the interview, I could go all day with Andrew Albers. Just really appreciate him being so gracious with his time and his stories. I don't often feel any sort of intimidate. In fact, very rarely am I ever intimidated about asking someone to come on the show. But someone who's been in the big leagues, you get a little bit of trepidation. You wonder if something like this is going to be worthwhile for him to come on. So I do really appreciate him coming on. He's just another good Sasky, right? In the end, of course, he's going to come on. We love our athletes here in Sasky when they get up to the show, and great to chop it up with him. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Before we go, we're going to wrap up the show as we always do with our good sport of the week. And this week, as I shift gears a little bit, it is a somber good sport of the week, especially for people who have been associated with Husky athletics and the Huskies football program, as we mourn the passing of Val Schneider, just an absolute giant, not just within Husky athletics, but in the Canada West Conference. He was the head coach of the Huskies. He total of 10 seasons prior to Brian Towers taking the program over. Schneider from 73 to 79, then had a year where he wasn't the coach, and then 73 to 78, and then he coached them again from 80 through 83 before handing the reins to Brian Towers. That's the third most seasons all time in Huskies program history, behind Towers and E. Kent Phillips. But he did a lot more than just coach the football team. Even before he coached the football team, he was actually a four-time All-Star before the Canada West was even formed with the Alberta Golden Bears. And he was the MVP of the 1967 Vanier Cup as a punter, albeit a two-way player, but a punter in a 10-9 victory over McMaster. He was awarded MVP in that 67 Vanier Cup. But are the Huskies grateful that he decided to come to Saskatchewan and join the faculty of education or physical education and go on to coach the football team. He also spent 9 years as an assistant coach with Brian Towers, where he was a two-time Vanier Cup champ on the sidelines, 1990, 1996. He coached the Huskies wrestling team for 2 years. He was also the USask athletic director from 1980 through 1991. He became part of the Canada West executive in 1995, went on to become the executive director until his retirement in 2012, and he was the very first inductee into the Canada West Hall of Fame when it was created in 2019. He's a member of both the U of A and USask Athletic Walls of Fame, multi-time inductee into the Saskatoon Sports Hall of Fame, and just an absolute giant. Of course, son Brent quarterbacked the Huskies to a couple of Vaniers, I think. His legacy is massive. It's beyond just football. And so after his unexpected passing last week, obviously a lot of people grieving that. There was a moment of silence held at the Husky football game last weekend. Just an absolute giant in terms of the impact he had on the sports landscape, not only here in Saskatoon, but across the Canada West as well as an executive. So he will obviously be dearly, dearly missed. We want to send our best out to his family and friends, all of those who are going through the difficulty of dealing with his passing, and we want to salute him as we like to do here on the show. Good sport of the week seems like, compared to all those other accolades, certainly doesn't hold a candle to any of that, but it wouldn't be right if we didn't mention him here on the show this week. So to everyone again in his orbit who's mourning his passing, we do send our condolences and we're thinking of you, Val Schneider. What a life, what an impact. He's our good sport of the week. And that wraps up the show for this week. Lots of good stuff again here. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to talk some basketball next week on the show. Alex Campbell is going to be our guest. Huskies assistant coach and former Saskatchewan Rattler, recently retired from professional hoops. We're going to talk about all of that, lots more next week on the show. So please join us then. And of course, as always, like, share, subscribe on the Dufferin Ave Media Network. Follow us at Good Sports on Instagram. And thanks to LB, our producer today, to Gary Nickel, to everyone else here at Dufferin Ave who plays a part in making this show happen. We appreciate you, each and every one of you. Well, I certainly do. Thanks to you, the viewer, for watching. Hope to have you here again next week. And as always, be a good sport.
Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport.
A victorious daydream.
Good sport.
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport.
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport.
It's the name of the game.